So, if you were listening to the first hour, or if you weren't listening for that matter, we were speaking to three affected homeowners who effectively were recommended by engineers for full demolition as part of the Defective block scheme. That was by engineers who visited the site. That was off the back of core testing that was taken as well. Then they were told, a desktop review, effectively, it seems, that they were being downgraded and various other options, i.e. in one instance, leaving the rising walls, leaving the roof, leaving the internal walls, but replacing the outer and inner leaf walls. That was the option. And they're going like, well, what's going on here? We've already been recommended for demolition. It throws up so much uncertainty and questions being asked, and it kind of makes you look at the Attorney General's advice back a couple of years ago a little bit differently. The 100% Redress Party Councillor, Joy Beard, joins me on the programme now. Joy, thanks for taking the time to chat to us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Greg.
Right, what's your party's reaction to, I suppose, these people coming out and outlining their lived reality?
Yeah, well, it is a lived reality, and we have to remember that. This is people's lives that are being affected by these decisions that are being made. It's becoming more and more aware that more people are becoming downgraded by housing agency engineers. Now, these are independent engineers, I've been told, but they are employed by the housing agency. I think there's 76 currently have been downgraded, and it's just not acceptable, to be honest.
I didn't realise the scale of it. That's an interesting figure to have, 76. Also, too, what I thought was interesting is, and I can't find the information here, but I think it was from Katrina, who did a Freedom of Information request, right? Sorry about this, I'm just finding it here. Right, she did she was on the scheme from 2020. She was downgraded on the 20th of May. So she had a verbal approval for a demolition in August 2021. So she says, well, what's going on here? Applied for freedom of information to see why she was downgraded. The council said, we don't have paper files, everything's on the portal. But what she did discover is that it was written, she had a subsequent test then that was submitted to the portal, presumably, last year. And it was written in block capitals, do not use this in under the enhanced scheme. So an updated test of materials of the house and what have you, and it was actually precluded from being even considered under the enhanced scheme. That again too all feeds into this problem. Very worrying and hard to make sense of.
Yeah, it is extremely worrying. Exactly. As I say, we're very concerned that these homes, some of these applications have been submitted over 3 years ago. Now, we know these houses are deteriorating quite rapidly now. Many of these homes are unsafe, and as Katrina mentioned earlier in her interview with you, they're unhealthy as well. These latest developments in the property need to be forthcoming and need to be considered when they are doing the appeals process. For this not to be considered doesn't make any sense at all. Fresh information needs to be submitted to strengthen the case for demolish. We have to remember that these remediation options, this causes further problems down the line. We know Engineers Ireland have said that IS 465 is not fit for purpose, and this is the standard being used. So therefore, engineers, will they sign off on these properties with still remaining with deleterious materials? I don't think that's going to happen.
The Attorney General's concern is that they might. Sorry, not that. His actual concern is, and sorry, you're talking about signing off once they've been remediated. His concern is that they might recommend demolition. That's under IS 465. Sorry, we'll come back to the mortgageability and saleability of the properties afterwards, because I know that's what you're referencing, Joy. But I just want to, because we hear IS 465 all the time, right? And maybe there's a presumption that everyone understands the significance of that. So why does IS 465 feel outdated? Why does it need to be reviewed?
Well, we know initially when we realised there was a problem with the homes, the standard IS 465 was the standard being used to test for mica. Now, that was a desktop study, Greg. There was no scientific evidence to prove that it actually was mica in our homes. And don't get me wrong, there are properties, obviously a majority of properties have excess mica, but it now is an internal sulfide attack, has been proven by world-renowned scientists that this is the issue with our homes, that there's pyrite and pyrrhotite causing a reaction within our blocks, which is causing the deterioration, as well as the mica. That has to be considered as well. But the main cause of the deterioration is the internal sulfide attack.
So does IS 465 focus primarily then on mica still? And, you know, the level of mica in the block. Is that still really the primary focus when we are testing blocks? Because you do then hear people say, you know, pyrite and pyrrhotite was also picked up in these tests as well. So I do get confused at that point. If IS 465 is picking up these other deleterious materials, can you explain a little bit why then it's important that it's still revised?
Yeah, it does need to be reviewed. The IS 465 allows for mica only. So it does need to have these deleterious materials included.
Understood.
This is the heart of this scheme, and this is why properties are getting the remediation options that they are. With this internal sulfide attack, the only solution for these homes is to demolish the homes in full and replace the foundation. That is the only way these families are going to get away from this nightmare that they're living on a daily basis.
Right, so let's get back to what happens with option 2 to 5. So say, for instance, someone goes through that process. Who might the engineer be? Is it a new engineer? It's an engineer that did original testing? Is it the Department of Housing engineer? Who signs off at this point on remediated homes?
Well, as it stands, it is an engineer, you know, a homeowner engineer. You know, you'll engage with your architect. We'll organise that when your remediation has been done, and they should sign off on it. But Greg, the problem is we've heard it in the Oireachtas committee on housing and local government and heritage. I think it was the 14th of May. You know, and they sort of indicated that this IS 465 is not fit for purpose. They actually said that. So if the Engineers Ireland are saying it's not fit for purpose, how can the government not take in these other considerations? And to be honest, that standard needs to be taken away and a new standard for these homes formed. You know, it's just not acceptable that these families, this is hard enough for these families, and to be downgraded based on, we have to remember, a lot of these homeowners don't even have a housing agency engineer come out and inspect the properties. You know, it's all done visually, done on a desk where a lot of them haven't even visited the property. You know, but the scientific evidence is there. You know, these reports cost €6,000, and for them not to be, you know, they have to consider them obviously. But when a professional engineer who is registered with Engineers Ireland said your home needs to be demolished, and then now the housing agency have taken over, they're saying, no, we're downgraded that to an option 2 to 5. That's hard to take for a homeowner who's already been living.
What about this, and I think Charlie McConlogue referenced this in his statement last week, what about this commitment from government that if you go for anything other than a full demolition and rebuild, you maintain eligibility for a second grant if required for a period of 40 years. So that seems to be almost like a 40-year guarantee of the works. That's not tested yet, is it, in terms of the sale of the property? Maybe if interest rates change, if you want to switch lenders. We don't really know how that might be viewed yet. Exactly. That's completely uncertain. We can't compel lenders. They might find another reason not to take it on.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. I do feel that homeowners are going to be trapped in these properties, and that's a big fear of mine, that they're not going to be able to live their lives the way they want to. They're not going to be able to move homes. They're not going to be able to remortgage. You know, that they're basically, unless they have a cash buyer for these houses, that they're never going to be able to leave these homes. And that's a massive concern for families, you know, that their futures have been decided for them, basically, because of the remediation option that they've been given, which is totally unjust and totally unfair, you know.
Just about signing off on remediated works, and I'd love to speak to engineers in relation to this. If it seems to be generally accepted that if you only did outer leaf, that the inner leaf is going to go. It's the same blocks, effectively, or the rising wall, or some people call it different things, or even the foundations. I find it hard to see how an engineer with that knowledge could actually sign off on something, why would you stake your reputation by signing off on a project if you had any concern whatsoever? Just seems like an obvious question to me.
Exactly. Obviously these are professional people. They know what's happening within these blocks. The blocks are the same, inner and outer. You don't get a load of blocks delivered and told, right, do that block on the outer leaf and do that block on the inner. That makes no sense. So engineers, obviously signing off on these would have to be 100% sure that these homes will not deteriorate in the future. And I don't know of an engineer now that I've been speaking to that would give that, sign it off on that basis. Again, you have to think about their indemnity insurance and what have you. Down the line, if the home fails again, they're going to be liable. So it is a massive, massive worry for engineers as well. So until IS 465 is reviewed and hopefully the right conclusion made based on the science, I think that's the only way that engineers would feel comfortable signing off on these homes.
And I mean, I'm just saying, say I got the outer leaf of my house repaired and someone comes up, I want to sell it, and they come up and they go, all right, any mica in the house? And I'm sorry to use the word mica, any defective concrete in the house. And I go, oh, well, we went through the scheme and we've got the house fixed. And then they say to me, oh, is it a brand new build? I said, well, no, the outer leaf. We just got the outer leaf done. That was fine. And they say, well, what about the inner leaf? Is there defective concrete in that? Well, it was the same blocks as the outer leaf, but we've been told that they're okay. What about the rising walls? I've heard that, and I've seen them deteriorate. Well, we were told that it's fine. Anyway, I'm looking for €320,000, please. Can you imagine, like?
No, that's what I mean.
Even a cash buyer, Joy, who would make the biggest purchase of their life under those circumstances? Maybe they would, I don't know. And it's an open platform. Anyone can text in if they'd be happy to do that. But you might say, well, look, I'll give you 180 for it and take the risk. What does it do to house prices and the value of these properties?
Well, this is it. We have to always remember that these are lives and people are living this daily. People have planned their futures, Greg, based on their homes as well. It's an asset. I've spoken to people who want to downsize, but with the remediation option they're being given, they're thinking they're never going to be able to sell their home, and take any equity out of their home, which is, leaving people, with their futures uncertain, But I think the big thing at the moment is these families, since, some of these downgrading and the appeals have been ongoing since January. With nothing coming forward, I don't think any appeals have actually taken place yet, even though the appeals panel has been set up.
Who is on the appeals panel? Do we know, Joy? Who's on the appeals panel? So
there is a list of engineers, independent engineers, and other engineers.
Is that a separate list to the?
It's independent. Yeah, it is totally independent from the housing agency.
My point is we've got a group. They're all trained the same, really, effectively. So we've got a group of engineers that make an initial recommendation. I don't know how many engineers we have in this country. We've got a separate group of engineers that make an initial recommendation. Then we've got another group of engineers that make a determination on behalf of the Department of Housing. And then, lo and behold, we found another group of independent engineers then that review appeals.
Yes, exactly.
Wow,
so
we have a lot of engineers in this country.
Well, some of them will be one and the same, possibly, Greg. I haven't a list of the housing agency independent engineers who they've employed, but a lot of some of the engineers could be on that list as well. Which, to me, it's not the right way to go about it. They should be totally independent.
Right, Joe.
And I think for the appeals process, even the two engineers, the homeowner engineer and the housing agency engineer initially, would need to air their concerns and get together and look through the report and explain why the options are being given to these homeowners and why they're being downgraded.
And I think I'm only asking really simple questions. I'm not trying to be clever or anything. Yeah. Joy, thank you very much. Councillor Joy Beard there of the 100% Redress Party.